Every so often you run across a position that is so good you just have to show somebody, and this is one of those positions. So if you know anybody that needs to see a fresh idea that they've never seen, this position right here is it. So make sure you show this to all your family, all your friends, all your chess buddies, even people who don't know anything about chess. They might find something to appreciate here. All right, so on the first glance, this position looks pretty unremarkable. White has 4 pawns, black has 4 pawns, same color bishops. Although white pawns are further advanced, black does have a passed pawn, but it doesn't look like black can necessarily make any progress. However, there is a technique, excuse me, in this position that quite frankly, I've something I have never seen. Now, one elephant I want to go ahead and get out of the room is that a lot of people just may be wondering, why can't you just go ahead here and take this pawn? And you can. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm gonna get this out of the way just to show you what happens. If you go here, king attacks, and king comes here. So now, while the white bishop is not trapped, it is entombed on h7, and therefore there's little to no progress to be made here as white. In fact, white does have a pass pawn as well, so you better not try to get fancy here, because if you do, you would lose this game. All right, so let's go back to the original position. So what is so remarkable about this position? Well, the position is that the position has this hidden feature where it's hard to explain. So I'm gonna show it to you, but again, other than the fact that the optimal placement of the white bishop is going to completely control the black light squared bishop and the black king. Now, let's just take, before we move along, I don't want to take too much time before we get to the moves, because this is kind of exciting to me. What is the core feature of the position here? Well, if we look at this spot here, G7, I'm gonna give you a little hit, G6. Just imagine if you could sacrifice your bishop right here and push H7. Well, G7 and G8 would be blocked, and so therefore you could push in and get a queen. So therefore, so how would you manage to do that? Well, the first thing that black needs to do, believe it or not, there's only one, well, actually 2 winning moves here, but only one real winning move, because the other move doesn't really count, because if you go the other move, you're going to come back to the other move anyways, and I'll show you what that is. So the first move white is going to do, well, I'll tell you this first. Go ahead and pause the video and see if you can just figure out some of the nuance of the position and figure out what would be white's first move, because again, to get this first move, you probably could play it actually almost by mistake, but to follow through with the idea is a whole nother situation here. All right, so here we go. The first move here is bishop to c4. I did tell you that there were another first move, but it leads back to this anyway, and I'll show you that really quick before we move on. That is just bishop to c2, because the white king has to come here because of the threat of the sacrifice that was here. And then he just go back here with a check, king steps back, and then he goes back to c4. So that's like sort of a computer line, but anyway, the real first move should be bishop to c4. So what does bishop to c4 accomplish? Well, what it accomplishes is that it keeps the black bishop off of that from coming to here and then being on this diagonal here. Because if black bishop was able to be on that diagonal, the maneuver that you're going to see here in just a moment couldn't happen, because of the nature of the position would be changed, and black bishop would be in a better position to defend the king side of the board, and also he wouldn't that bishop would not also be controlled by the white bishop as it's going to be in the coming moves. All right, so now the only reasonable move that black has, let's go back to the I guess the original position here, bishop c4. The only, I mean, white can play anything here. Black can play anything here. He can play bishop g2. He can play anything. But the most, I guess, human move is just to hover the f8 because you got to stay close over here because there's always this sacrifice on g6. So king to f8. Again, there's many lines. Again, and as you notice, once he moves, and now the bishop is on c4, you have a direct path with your white king to the to the queen side. Sorry, I said king side earlier. And an important thing is just not to block either one of those diagonals that you see here in red. And the reason why you don't want to block your diagonals is because you're going to need these diagonals for the tempos that you're going to need for this particular maneuver. The maneuver is not quite set up yet, but black basically has no choice given his positional circumstance here. All right, so with that said, our king is going to go, you can go king to b4, king to d2. It doesn't really matter. I'm just going to go king to d2. And again, there's lots of other lines to achieve this particular technique, but it all results in the same thing. So king is just going to hover a little bit. Black king is, excuse me. The white king continues to make his way to the king side. King f8, king b4, king e8, now king a5. Now this is the beginning of the maneuver here because now white is actually threatening to come in to have this path in here. If he comes in here, both sides of the board, both weaknesses on each side of the board is going to be just too much for white to bear. So bishop has to go bishop b7. Now there's plenty of moves you can do here. You can play actually about any move that white can play is can be played here. But I think that based on my analysis of the position, g4 from a human standpoint seems to be the best move. And the reason, again, it's not the best move according to the computer, but the reason being is that when you push g4 here, he can't bring his bishop back. So it kind of makes his bishop can't move from that square because it's blocking a6. Or it can't move from that short diagonal. It can go back to c8 as well. So it restricts his bishop. It even prepares to even push this up to g5 in some cases. And even if he was to go bishop f3 and make you push forward, it would only just help your case in any case because it's the resulting mechanism that you're going to see happen is going to happen anyway. All right, so now king to f8 is the only move that makes sense because again, and one other thing I do want to get out of the way, if you push either one of these pawns here, we'll look at that a little bit more in a minute. If you push either one of these pawns here, it only just helps white get into the king side. So king to f8 it is. Now here's the beginning of the maneuver here. Bishop to b5. Now you might say, what does this do? Well, what it does is that it forces bishop to protect the, because first of all, right now you're attacking this pawn. If white was on e8, come back to e8, you could, for example, push e6 and win this pawn, for example, or just win or trade everything and just still win. So he can't sort of push the pawn forward because if he push the pawn forward, it just gives white a direct, once he moves his bishop out of the way, there's a direct path in. So he can't do that. The only reasonable move is bishop to f8. Bishop to c8. Now, as we can see as of right now, this is the beginning of the maneuver here, because this bishop is controlled by the white bishop at this point because he has to protect his pawn. So now bishop to d3 by white is double X clamp, because right now, if white does nothing, let's just say if he makes a non-move, let's make a non-move for real quick. We'll just show you what'll happen. Bishop takes, pawn takes, and h7, and you know you can't stop white from queening. So the only reason move, so he has to step up bishop to king to f7. Now bishop to c4 check. And you wonder why did you do that and come back with the check. And this is once he moved to king to f8, you'll see why. This is a maneuver. Whenever you want to move your king in this position, you want that hit the opponent's bishop on c8, and you want his king on f8, because they're both being controlled by this lone bishop. You see this diagonal here, this diagonal here, and even if he comes out, you'll see what's going to happen. With bishop to b7, you'll see what'll happen. So now he goes king to b4. So now he can just move his king all over the board. If he goes bishop to b7, you repeat the maneuver. You go you can go bishop to you can go either way. You can go bishop to b5 first or bishop to d3 first. In my case, the line I have is bishop to d3 first. He steps up. Now you go back to bishop to b5, bishop to c8, and then bishop to c4 check, king to f8, king to c3. It should be clear now that what we're trying to, the goal is to get our king right here onto g5 so we can sacrifice our bishop on this square here. And if you look at this right now, look at the position that white is in. That black is in. His bishop is like in an extremely passive position. King in an extremely passive position. There he goes. So anyway, the bishop to b7 again, bishop d3, king f7, bishop b5, bishop c8, king c4 check, king f8, king to d4. This is like wow to me, like to see some sort of bishop, a lone bishop, because again, we've already established that white cannot push these two pawns over here on the c file and the d file, and it's just an impending. And like I said, there is other moves that black can do. I'll let you do that if you choose. But no matter what, it all equals to this same situation. Because again, if he pushes either one of these pawns in any case, it only makes the situation worse. All right, bishop b7 and bishop b5. Like I said, you can go bishop b5 first. It doesn't really matter. c8, d3, step up. So you notice we're back here now. With the position we want, instead of his bishop not on b7. So let's just go back a few moves ago. So imagine this. Look, a while ago, his bishop is on. Look at this position. Bishop is on b7, right? The black bishop on b7. Now watch this. Same position now, but it's white's move, and the black bishop is on c8. That's why this is so amazing. Bishop to b7, b5, c8, d3, again, threatening to sacrifice, king to f7, bishop c4 check, king f8, and now king f4. This is, again, one of those positions that were like, you would think that this is not a practical position, but however, I'll stop and tell you just real quick where this position came from. In Jacob Agar's book, A Matter of Endgame Technique, this actually occurred in a club game online by a guy named Kevin Smith and Jeremy Hart. I don't know if they actually carried out the game like this, but the position arose in that game, the original position. All right, bishop d7, b5. We just go back. We all know the moves. He steps back, and now you can go to king to g5. Now, in this case, it doesn't really matter what white does at this point because nothing is going to stop d3, bishop d3, and then sacrifice here. So if he goes here, say bishop to d7, just for the sake of, I mean, you could go d3 here, but just for the, and go ahead and win the game. But just for the sake of technique, you can go back here. Again, he can't, if he push either one of these pawns, it doesn't matter. It's just going to make his situation work. If he let's just go ahead and push a pawn to show you. If you push this here, well, you just push something like this, for example. If he pushed this here, well, it just blocks his own bishop, and now look how restricted his bishop looks. So it's even worse. So nothing you can do reasonable. I mean, he could move his bishop, I guess, which would I mean, you could still go bishop to d3 if you want, or you could just simply take the pawn, just like that. So in this case, black is probably just going to go ahead back here to c8, bishop to d3. This is just a principal variation. I mean, again, anything else going to lead to the same thing. f7. So now we see that we've achieved our goal, which is bishop takes g6 check. Let's just say if black, if he takes, obviously you just push. And let's just say if he don't take, he goes back, you still can take the bishop. I mean, you could go, I mean, you could push anything if you want. I mean, you could even push, you can push e6, but I personally like, just go ahead and take. And you still can push the pawn because take a look at this. These two squares are hit. And white can just push in to get a queen just like that. So with that said, I hope you guys really enjoyed this video. This was one of the most, again, fascinating bishop studies I've ever done. I normally study bishop and knight end games because, again, you run across a lot of rook games in practice. And again, sometimes bishop and knight end game, I know rook end games can be tough, but a lot of times they're a lot more straightforward than knight and bishop or any combination of those two pieces in an end game. And so that's why this position, when I first saw this position, it just caught my eye immediately. So I just jumped right into it. Did I solve this? Absolutely not. But however, the amount of, I've spent probably 5 or 6 hours studying this puzzle in totality from yesterday and today. I don't think I will forget such a technique like this, and I'll always be looking for this technique. And I hope you got the same thing out of this video and be looking for this technique just the same.